Do you want to wait till Ben gets here?
Yes, I'm just getting it started.
You're just practicing.
Yes, I'm not gonna fix it
Thank
yet.
you. You're the new kid in town tonight on that. You ready, Ben? Yep. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call this plan commission meeting in Village of Lannon Thursday, August 25th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Benny,
Here.
Graham,
Recording stop.
Dallas.
Here.
Janice,
Here.
Taylor,
Here.
Summers,
Here.
Yates
Here. Statement of public notice.
has been posted.
Thank you. Discussion and possible approval of plan commission meeting minutes from 7/28/22. Anybody have any questions or comments?
It just seems, on the, like, real hours sentence there, it just reads funny on her property and stuff like that. Was that just a bunch of combinations of terms? Under category 6?
I believe it was the biggest issue there is they're coming down to the silk fence and down to the lot line with their dogs to do their business right outside of the door.
And it's not Mike Muehlbauer's property,
No,
okay,
he was speaking
on behalf of the neighbor.
Jeannie
Okay.
Crosby.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from 7/28/2022.
Second. We have a motion and second. Do we have any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Citizen comments. This is for citizens to speak, address your comments to the board. We can answer back any disruptive behavior and you will be asked to leave. Open to the floor. Comments, please.
Okay.
Name and address, sir.
Hi, Dennis Shirkus, address is 19926 Overlook Court. And I would just like to know about the plan for the filtration concepts, about their addition, about what they're going to do with the landscaping. Are they gonna have additional evergreens and trees? Also, the lighting situation. Because if they add any lighting, that lights go into our homes, right into the bedrooms, the dining rooms, living rooms. Or else, patios. So I wanted to know about that, and also if there's any possibility, the big box trucks, sometimes they park along the line there. If they have to be there, so we view out our windows to see the big trucks. If there's anywhere, if they can keep the trucks in front possibly, or back where the addition's going to be. So that's all I've got. Again, it's all addresses for the filtration concepts.
Thank you, sir. Any more citizen comments? Yes, sir.
Jim Ballard, 19953 Overstone Drive. I'm sure the commission is surprised to see such a big turnout. But this is all related to the view between the Overstone condominiums and Filtration Concepts. And there's a lot of concern about what kind of plan, if any, will be submitted for a landscape buffer and as well as a lighting plan. So, you know, these residents have concerns, and I respectfully request that the board consider having Filtration Concepts submit such plan.
Thank you. Any more comments?
Lisa
Yes,
Canasty, 20179 West Good Hope Road. In regards to cut and go, things have been much better since they did put in the curbs. We'd like to see more. I'm not flooding quite as much, although last night's rain, I had a lake. Can't do anything about that. It just rained so hard, but I'd like to know what their plan is, if there's any additional. The neighbor to the north of me is still flooding immensely. Their driveway is still flooded at this time. So any input on that would be great.
Your lot number, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, 112.
thank you, Lisa. Any more citizen comments? Any more comments? Thank you, everybody. Move on to the next item, discussion and possible action on amended plan of operation for Artistic Stone, 7090 North Town Line Road, Lannon, Wisconsin, 53046.
Yeah, Dave Beaver, I'm the owner of Artistic Stone. Jesus, my plan of operation, if that's possible.
So I provided my comments in the packet. Trust most folks have had a chance to look at them. In general, at issue here is, I looked at this plan of operation similar to the Morgan Hammer property plan of operation. The key difference, as I put in my comments here, and there's a little zoning map with some call outs that show it, but the Morgan property is zoned light industrial, and storage is something that's allowed on that.
Which one are we talking about? Or
It's immediately to the south. So if you look at my comments, it's on page 2. There's a map. Thank you. Yep, for sure. So the Needler property actually has split zoning with light industrial up front and then quarrying for probably back 3/4 of the lot or so. So at issue here is, no, the ordinances say that no use is allowed in a quarry, but conditional uses are allowed. And those conditional uses can include uses that are consistent with the quarrying operation. So really what the planning commission has to consider here, if the storage of vehicles is, you know, a use consistent with that. My opinion is that it's not, but I think the commission should discuss it. I provided other specific comments on the plan of operation itself. Concerning stormwater, the site is internally drained, meaning that it drains to the quarry hole in the back of the property. I reached out to DNR about that because obviously with Kelly's Rock Solid Storage and Lemke, the whole stormwater issues have come up, and you know, generically DNR said that internally drained is actually an official designation for stormwater purposes that's afforded to quarries because they recognize that the rainwater and stormwater runoff only comes into contact with natural materials. They said the only way to keep that designation would be and have vehicles stored back there is if the vehicles are in good condition, they have hoods, they're not leaking fluids, et cetera, et cetera. So if there's stuff being stored there that's in a state of disrepair, then that, calls into question that whole designation, and they would have to do stormwater treatment, like most other properties would. And then I guess lastly, the thing I want to share is, in doing a little bit more research today, there's actually a village ordinance about junk vehicles, that if junk vehicles are not operable, that they should not be stored within sight of the public right away or neighboring properties.
Yes, the one question I have is last month, when we gave 60 days, is because there was a statement made that all this vehicles and boats, stuff, belonged to somebody in Illinois, and they were gonna get it out of here. And now you're coming back and you want us to put on your plan of operation storage of 12 trailers, 4 forklifts, 22 van bodies, 8 trucks, 8 boats. And I can see from the pictures, a lot of the boats aren't even on trailers. That looks like junk to me. The van bodies, I don't know. That, like then you were saying that would have to be a conditional use. So he would have to go before the quarry committee, then the plan commission, then the village board for that conditional use.
Yeah, if the plan commission wanted to entertain him using the quarry zone portion of the property for anything other than quarry, it should go through a conditional use permit process.
Is there a purpose to have these vehicles there? I mean, are they all abandoned, or are you selling parts for junk? You're selling parts for junk?
No. Let me take it. I've been assisting him. I'm the one that filled out the forms. This is an offshoot of the last meeting, and where they gave Dave 60 days to get the vehicles out of there. There's a problem with that in that he's been trying to get them out of there for more than 90 days already. The guy somewhat has disappeared. He was in Wauwatosa, but now he's in Illinois. And quite frankly, it's not going to be gone in 60 days. It's probably going to take some legal action. Don't know about evictions. If you're familiar with evictions, they're quite long and quite difficult. So I looked at this as an alternative, as a stopgap for now. The other thing is we could look to change it to light industrial, but it's probably going to be quarried in the future by Lemke. So we really didn't want to expose it to giving up the quarrying. So we're looking for to use it for the vehicles that are there. They will all be gone eventually. It started out with parking some food trucks there. There's probably a half a dozen or more food trucks there. And over the years, it slowly grew, and it's out of control and has been. But it's not going to get cleared up in 60 days.
So if Jerry, if I can ask, you mentioned evictions and the challenges with evictions, that would imply that rents were collected. Are there lease agreements or rent agreements for storing those items?
There's nothing in writing, unfortunately. And there was payments made some years ago, but not recently.
So I looked up this additional ordinance. You can take note. It's section 30-127. Storage of junked motor vehicles. Sub A, no person shall store or allow to remain in the open upon any public or private property within the village, any disassembled, inoperative, unlicensed, junked or wrecked trailers, semi-trailers, mobile homes, motor vehicles or parts thereof, unless it is in connection with the operation of an authorized junkyard.
And I might add, none of this is visible. It's down in the quarry.
Well, it also says sub C, any motor vehicle parked in an area or manner observable by the public or any person on a neighboring property on premises operated as an automotive sales or repair business must be suitable for operation on public highways as required by standards set forth in state statutes. Unless that vehicle is actively being repaired in the normal course of repair business or is waiting imminent, not more than 72 hours, repair or transport to an authorized junkyard or enclosed storage area.
Became visible when Kelly's landscaping decided that he was gonna start working on building that storage unit. It became visible to everybody.
That's in the light industrial.
I don't know why that would be a big difference.
You
Well, this
talking
is
to the
permitted.
mic?
It's permitted in the light industrial.
It's not enough.
Yes, half of it is.
The vehicles are not,
The vehicles are in the quarry,
right.
Yeah.
So it's irrelevant.
but you can't see them.
That's
What-
immaterial, light of the ordinance.
Well, what Mike is mentioning though is the ones are up on the light industrial and they're permitted to be.
Still, that makes him vulnerable to prosecution under the village ordinance. First of all, who owns this property, Mr. Needler? Do you own it personally? Or do you own an entity that owns this
No.
property?
I own
You own, how long have you owned it?
24 years.
Okay, when did you first start storing the vehicles?
I'd say probably 12 years ago.
When did you last receive payment for the storage of these vehicles?
4 or 5 years ago. And it was helping out somebody. That's what I was doing.
Okay,
So
this somebody is this person who lived in Wauwatosa, right?
did, but now he's moved
Okay,
a couple times.
now, all these vehicles, do they all belong to that individual?
Some belongs to me.
Okay, how many of those belong to you?
I'd say about half.
Half. Are they titled in your name?
No, they're just vehicles that I bought with him too. And I just bought the vehicles, swap out parts or whatever.
So it's basically you bought them for junk purposes?
No.
What do you call?
Two vehicles to
swapping
make one
parts?
good vehicle, and then I hauled the other vehicle away. But I use those vehicles for my quarry, you know, like 2 forklifts, and we made a good forklift out of it. I got rid of it.
I'm talking about the trailers. How do
Um,
you use the trailers for your quarries?
Or the food truck. But so, yeah, I mean, I just had the trailers and I kept them, and I have a couple boats and stuff, and they're
Whose
empty
boats are
trailers
those?
right now.
Whose boats are those?
Some are his and some are mine.
Do you have any title papers for your boats?
No, because they were like auction ones. That's what I bought, so.
Members of the Plan Commission, I strongly recommend that you request the village board to authorize commencement of an action against this gentleman if he does not remove those vehicles within the time period that you allowed him previously. It is not excusable anymore for him or someone like Mr. Dronin to have vehicles that are not operable and in violation of the ordinance. Problem is not so much Mr. Niebler,
Right.
but the problem is you have a lot of quarry zone land. Mr. Niebler can do it, everyone else will attempt to do it. And the ordinances clearly restrict the kind of activities that are permissible in a quarry.
It is permitted at the adjacent quarry that Lemke owns. That's been going on.
It's immaterial. I mean, by
They
what
allow
right,
it.
by what right does he have an entitlement to have a conditional use when the proposed use he's contemplating is inconsistent with any of the conditional uses? Perhaps the board should also, excuse me, the plan commission should also look at any other conditional use that allow outside storage. We've had some situations in the village which by default have grown, and this apparently seems to be the case. Are you actively quarrying this?
No.
Or
No.
when did you last quarry this property?
2008.
2008. Is there any drainage from those vehicles that you know of?
No, there shouldn't be any. I mean,
How
the
do you know that?
vehicles, because I go down there every day. I
And you
gotta make
check
sure.
under each car?
Well, you'd be able to see. You would.
It's on stone.
It's on, yeah, it'd be very obvious that there'd be spills or whatever, but I'm trying to get a hold of the guy and
That is
I'm
no
doing-
excuse.
I
It's
know,
your property.
I
You
know,
own it personally.
I know,
You're responsible for what goes on in your property.
I know.
So I recommend to the plan commission that it denied the application for any kind of conditional use and allow the gentleman the amount of time that it previously extended to him. And in the absence of compliance, that there be a referral to the village board for the board to decide whether we will take action. This is not an uncommon problem in the metropolitan area. But at the same time, this is not something that a community with the kind of development that's taking place with Overstone and the other property should just accept because that's the way it was before.
I will say, this is not for a permanent situation. It's just 60 days is not gonna be enough, so.
Well, that is his challenge.
Yeah.
Because he was the one who allowed the parking effect.
Okay.
Do you have any more comments, Ben?
I make a motion to, we recommend to the village board to take commence legal action against Artistic Stone if these vehicles are not removed within the time frame that we gave them as last month, the 60-day period.
I'll second.
We have a motion and second. Do we have any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
We have to make a motion on the plan of operation.
Yes.
Make a motion to deny the amended plan of operation at this time.
Second,
We have a motion and second to deny the amended plan of operation. Do we have any more discussion? All in favor?
aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Discussion and possible action regarding the plan of operation site plan for Filtration Concepts LLC located at 19806 West Main Street.
So this was tabled from last month in order to provide an opportunity perhaps for neighbors to come and make comment, which you heard a couple earlier today. There is a landscape plan available and there's a lighting plan available. Is someone from the applicant here, representing the applicant? Perhaps do you have anything that you can share relating to any updates to the landscape plan or lighting?
Sure. So in addition to you,
Identify yourself, sir, please.
yes, my name is Colin Meisel. I'm a civil engineer with Ripper Monkey. And I'm here representing Filtration Concepts and Keller Incorporated, who is their general contractor. So as part of the landscaping plan, there are 33 arborvitae's planned along the property line in addition to the trees that are there currently, along with some areas used for foundation plantings. Based on the comments that we received last time, we added a note to the plan stating that trees are to be planted within 4 weeks of the project start because there was a worry about how long it would take to get trees in to provide
the additional screening. In addition, there was a note added to the plan that any trees that were removed due to the proposed ditch on the north side of the parking lot, that those would need to either be salvaged and replaced or replaced in kind with a similar tree. So those were the updates that were made to the landscaping plan. The lighting plan that was provided shows acceptable photometrics based on the building wall packs. And in addition, although I do not believe this is required, they were put on a motion sensor so that they will not be on all the time.
Is this lighting all gonna be surface mounted on the building?
Yes. There's no poles on it.
What, there is no, in the packet, there's no pictures of the light fixtures themselves. Are these sconces, are these downward lighting, how's the lighting shielded? Is it just gonna run down the side of the building? It's gonna spread out across the parking lot?
Sure. So I do not, I myself do not do the lighting plan. I cannot confirm exactly what those light fixtures are right now. All what I do know is that based on the photometrics that were provided, is that the candelas are within acceptable ranges by the property line.
And then there's, in all the packet pictures, and everything like that, there's no, what do they call it, landscape viewing of the building, the side view of the building. Like I see nothing but overheads. You don't have any, what the material in that back building is gonna be, that addition of the building. The height of that part of the building doesn't show up on the drawings. I don't see.
I believe we have those. I guess I wasn't aware that we have those at this point. The outside of the building is going to be similar material and color of what's there now. The building is going to be no taller than what's out there now. I believe it slopes down to the northwest. So we're not looking at anything taller than what's out there now.
Is that the lighting going over the lot line?
No.
It's not gonna go beyond the lot line.
And some elevations and a cut sheet for the lights would be helpful.
I agree.
Because, you can have a building that sits up 20 feet and you put a light up there that's 10 feet and you live down below a hill, you can see up into that light like you look at here. I want to know what kind of shielding is on this light. So I look up, I don't see it.
So far, there is none. No shielding.
Then the photometric that we have.
Yep.
It stops at the lot line or it stops where there's no more light?
It goes beyond the lot line, the boundaries of the map that you're looking at go beyond the light line. And it demonstrates and the extent of all of the outside of these, because each of those little points on that grid is a dot and it's a measurement of the foot candles of light. If you were to measure that on the ground. And what they're showing is, it's all zeros. So they drew a red line that would show where it gets down to, I believe, half a foot candle being on the ground. And then beyond that, it shows where it gets down to zero.
Is that this circle?
Yes, that is the circle.
And everything beyond that circle zero.
That circle represents a half. So you go a little bit further beyond that, and by a little bit, I'm talking like 5 or 10 feet, but beyond that, and it's zero.
What does zero mean?
Zero means if you were standing there when the light turned on and you were looking at your shoes, you would not notice any difference. Okay, so this is one thing to keep in mind. It's not to say that you can't see the light from a distance. If the whole village were flat, there'd be some lights that you could see from across town. They don't illuminate anything on your property, but they're still in view. So comments, in my opinion, comments about shielding or making sure that it's pointed down, etc., may be reasonable, but I think folks also have to understand that, these folks need to also light their property for safety and security purposes also. And no one has suggested they have no lighting, but I'm just saying like, that's an unreasonable expectation. So for the gentleman who made the initial comment here about, what about seeing this light from my dining room, my patio, et cetera, through my windows? If you look out your window, you will see the lights, but the light should not be illuminating anything on your property. Meaning, when the light flickers on, you won't suddenly see, and all the lights are off in your house. You shouldn't see any light coming in when that light flicks on, if that makes sense.
When that
But if
light
you looked
burns
out the window,
And when that light burns out and you have to change it, what happens? Because there's a lot of problems when the lights burn out in this town. And the companies change them and the whole world is lit up and stuff.
unfortunately, I think the course of action in that situation would be to work through the complaint process.
So it's
And the
unreasonable.
benefit here is that this property would actually have a plan of operation and plan commission approval that, the plan commission could call it back and say, at that point, hey, you did something that is not aligned with what we approved. And discuss enforcement action.
Are these LED fixtures,
I do not know that.
Concerning the building elevations, I think because this would be the third meeting approximately that this has been at, I believe the building elevations were previously provided. What was in the packet for tonight's meeting was just the information for which this was tabled from.
I'm looking at last month's packet. There's
Yeah, the
no,
whole
there's
thing.
no elevation drawings.
I don't think so.
And the thing I'm looking at here is, I think on the one packet last month is 30 feet. It looks like 25 feet they're measuring off that northeast corner to the lot line. And on their lighting plan, roughly, it looks like each one of those little markings is 5 foot. That puts it at 30 feet. So that's almost like 5 feet over the lot line then.
It's possible that you might get a tenth of a foot candle or
So
something.
that's why we need to know what the height of that light is. I mean, if they lower the light that spread it doesn't go out that far then.
What does the ordinance say as far as candelas? And does the ordinance say 0 or does it say?
Yeah, I'm just looking that up now.
I don't, from any of these pictures, I don't get a real good idea of the landscaping plan, especially where it adjoins the other homes. Unless I'm missing something. I just see dots.
Page C8.
Second.
Pretty solid line of arborvitae's, 33 planted very, tightly that they grow up through their ordinances, 7-foot planting. That's what we had called out. At maturity, those will be 15 to 20 feet tall with 5-foot spread.
I guess with what's lack of information on lighting, my backyard's lit up like you wouldn't believe, and there was supposed to be no light spillage, and it's annoying. I think we need a little more information on lighting, or we have to be able to come back and visit it. And that again, with your screening, if that's sufficient, that'll block lighting. My instance, there is no screening, so my entire backyard's lit up from the Saywell project, and I would like to avoid having to deal with that in the future. I'd rather handle that now why we're still dealing with it drawing.
So I guess my question is, maybe Ben can share, some information on this. You know, I think we're meeting the shielding requirements of the landscaping ordinance. As far as the lighting goes, I would be more than happy to get you the cutoffs of those light fixtures and provide you more information on the height of those fixtures. I don't know if there's anything in the ordinance that says what we have to have as far as cutoffs. I think from that to my memory, it's just talking about the foot candles on the ground. And so I guess we're more than willing to provide you more information. What we would like to avoid is waiting a month, to come back to another meeting because it's quickly getting into fall. We'd like to get started on the project.
Yes, Doctor.
When you say it started on a project, are you talking about construction of the addition?
Yes.
Were you contemplating planting any landscaping this fall?
Yes, that's why we have on the plans that we'll do it within 4 weeks of start.
Have you had the opportunity to view the property personally?
Yes.
And would you agree with me that adjacent to the property is a very nice condominium development? Please understand, the village wants your client and the neighbors who are there to have a happy existence going forward. Is there some way that your client can provide this information to the neighbor, maybe have some kind of a meeting so that they are satisfied, that they understand what it is their client is proposing? For example, you indicated that for vegetation that was there, that was failing, that you would replace it with white pine. To me, that statement would mean that if you have a pine tree that's 12 feet high and it's failing, you chop it down, you put another pine tree possibly 4 feet, and that would be, you know, acting in a manner consistent. Is that what your client is contemplating?
So what we have on the plan is the note specifically says transplant existing trees and replant after construction of swale. So there's a swale that we're installing to make sure that we don't have any stormwater runoff onto the neighbor's property. And that swale is going by some of the trees. So we're specifically saying that because those trees need to be moved, they either need to transplant those trees and put them back or replace them with a new 7-foot tree, which is the requirement in your landscaping ordinance for the size of the tree.
I don't see that, I mean, the selection of a light fixture, the approval of a exterior light fixture shouldn't preclude the beginning or commencement of construction. I mean, that we could conditionally approve a plan, you know, with them bringing forward cut sheets and something that we find suitable at a later date. And that way they can get started on their project and get the meat of it done. The putting up the light packs and the planting of the trees is not something that's gonna, we're not moving mountains, or sending people to the moon.
And I think that would be acceptable to us. We just want to get footings moving.
Yep.
And so the ordinances, sometimes we talk about performance standards, and there's a performance standard for decibels of noise measured at the lot line, et cetera. There's no explicit performance standard for lighting. However, under design criteria, there is a requirement that no light source shall exceed 20 feet in height. I'm not sure that the building is even 20 feet tall, so I don't think that's an issue here. Wattage shall not exceed 250. Cutoff luminaire, it cannot emit light at higher than an angle of 90 degrees. And there's a generic statement in here that it cannot create a glare. So beyond that, it's not a very specific requirement. I would agree with Patrick. I think, you know, as we've discussed this at prior meetings, you know, the architectural standard is simply that it blends in with the surroundings, and I'm not sure how better they could do at that other than making it match the existing building. So in my opinion, the landscaping was improved from the last meeting at the direction of the plan commission. And if you want a chance to review that again, I would also be supportive of some type of conditional approval, because I think they're getting to a point here where if they don't get approval, they can't get building permits, and this is gonna get kicked into the spring, which is in my opinion, it's not necessary.
I'm glad to see that they did take up the fact that to transplant the trees temporarily and bring them back, so,
Yeah.
you know, that's, you know, I see you got a comment here, Ben, about the compliance certainty.
Yep, so there is language in the ordinances that requires for a landscape installation or any other site improvements deemed appropriate, which I would suggest the work on the pond, and in this case, the landscaping, that there be a surety provided. And the intention of that is just to hold the applicant accountable, that if the plan commission approves a landscape plan, that they post a surety so that if it doesn't get done by a certain period of time, then the surety is there to back that up. So I think Hector and I discussed this and feel that would be appropriate for this application.
In light of, in light of the comments that have been made, I would second a recommendation that there be a conditional approval granted tonight so that the work can proceed with the understanding that a letter of credit be provided, which is commonly done in all development projects, to assure that there is the appropriate installation of the landscaping, and that the landscaping not be approved tonight finally, but carried on to a future meeting so that the details that have been volunteered or offered can be presented at a future meeting with the construction already underway.
And I just want to say, based on the input from the public here, I would strongly advise that you bring elevation drawings and landscape drawings up on a board or whatever is necessary to convey this. Essentially, quite frankly, I had the impression that the plans were provided to Marv and that Marv had the intention of sharing them with folks in the development. So maybe there's an opportunity to make those available for them to review and comment on in the meantime as well.
My recommendation would be that as to the people that are here tonight interested in this particular project, that you collect your contact information and provide it to the gentleman so that he in turn can contact you in advance of the next meeting when the landscaping and the lighting will be taken up. So you will have had an opportunity to look at, review, and think about what's being proposed. What the Plan Commission is trying to promote here is that there be a harmonious relationship between these two uses that are adjacent to each other.
Patrick?
Yeah, would it be labor prohibitive to go so far as to maybe have someone just put out some orange stakes in the proposed locations of these trees on this landscape plan, just so people can, sometimes it's easier to just see and visualize these when you're out there looking at it, and I know it's an extra step, but it might go a long way to ease some people's minds if they can kind of go out there and from their backyards visualize where these things will be.
Would the stakes include the height of the trees?
No. Just on the ground, a rough representation of the placement of the trees, just so.
I was in the back when you were talking, and you were talking about replacing trees with 7-foot trees, but these trees are all 12 to 20 feet tall.
The existing ones,
The
yeah.
existing ones, yeah, those are the ones that are gonna spade out, move them to the part of the property, you know, where that house used to be, and spade them into the ground there, and then move them back once that ditch is all built in there, and then they're gonna put those trees back, and then they're also gonna put in the arborvitae along there, like the deer can come along the old bottom wall. I would suggest arborvitae.
But also the trees, some of the trees you said you're gonna replace are like half dead on the bottom. And those are 15 feet tall. So
if
replace them
we
with a
do a-
7-foot tree, it kind of defeats the whole purpose of screening. Because it's a hill, and so they're at the top of the hill and coming down, so the 7-foot tree is gonna cover like 2 feet above the ground at the parking lot. We're just gonna see a 15 or 18-foot building and trucks. And the other thing is there's always trucks, they're parking trucks along the lot line. like
Oh,
big box
we could
trucks.
discuss this later on after the meeting.
I thought that's what the-
We can't have this discussion during the middle of the meeting. But sir, would you be willing to stick around a little bit after the meeting?
Great, thank you.
For
Thank you.
everyone's information, we have to work within the parameters of the ordinance. And the ordinance requires 7-foot vegetation.
What could the ordinance say? Maybe they should put the extension of the building on
Well,
the front
it's
end.
already-
That's- We can't have this discussion now. We can carry this on after the meeting. But it appears that they are intending on working with the neighbors, which I think the plan commission, that's our goal. And we also have a plan commission member that lives in your neighborhood. But for those, I'll stick around after the meeting. This gentleman will stay here. We can carry this discussion on after the meeting and share everybody's thoughts. And they are gonna come back with a revised landscaping and lighting plan. But this way they can move forward with their building and get it done before weather forbids it. So we have to all work together, and to me, it appears that they're willing to work with the neighbors. And they will have a financial incentive to do that.
One question on this C8. There's a piece of land or in this drawing that's went towards or towards the berm. That's not in other pictures. And then there's no landscaping in this hole here.
Corner there. Steve,
On C8.
It's not like a we're halfway down or something.
Yeah, my guess is that's the beginning of a flume. Yeah.
Yeah. for runoff.
So what that means is that's the low spot in the driveway. And then it collects the water and would shoot the water off in the eastern direction. So it collects here and then it goes through the swale and gets to their pond over here.
So where's the landscaping along there?
There would not be any landscaping on it.
Because they don't have room to put it?
Correct. Not on their property. I mean, there's nothing to say that they couldn't work with the condo association and say, hey, can we put some stuff on your property, and basically you would own it, but we would install it kind of, that's between them. But they do show a couple of existing trees that are there that are gonna remain as well. That's what they grayed out.
But there could be a big hole there too,
What do you mean?
without something, if someone lived on the
Oh,
other
a
side of
hole
there.
through the line of sight, not a hole in the ground.
Right,
I was thinking hole in the ground. We were talking storm,
so
sorry.
just a hole through they've got all the arborvitae's and the screening there, and then
Right. And then
we're
there's
gonna have
a
this
gap there.
area.
Yeah.
Somebody was, I don't know if they are, because we don't really have, a lot of pictures of where the homes are on the other side, or elevations to really see what the homes are gonna see. But we can deal with that for next time.
Mike, do you have any more comments?
I make a motion that we approve the application for filtrations concept with the following conditions, that they cannot put any lighting on the outside of the building until they send the lighting packs to the village board for review, and that they file a letter of credit for the surety of the stormwater management landscaping plans.
Well, why not to the village board, to planning commission?
I said planning commission, I'm sorry, planning commission.
I'll second.
We have a motion and second. Do we have any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Opposed? Motion carried. Discussion and possible action regarding sign permit for Henny's Dugout LLC at 7273 North Lannon Road, Lannon, Wisconsin, 53046. Comments, Ben?
I'd actually like to turn this over to the sign expert.
Patrick, you're up.
So I received a voicemail from this Kenny at Affordable Signs and Lighting, and I returned his call, and because I could kind of guess what the call was about, and explained in my message that, there were a number of details that seemed to be lacking from these submissions, and we, absent anybody being here to answer the questions we had, they kept getting tabled. And so if you could provide some additional details, maybe we can move this along. So he has provided some handwritten notes on his previously submitted drawing. And I don't really take any exception to any of these or the aesthetics of what he's proposing here. I guess my suggestion would be that so that we don't keep dragging this out forever, and we can let this business hopefully try to grow their business and their patronage, is that we approve this with the condition that not only is an application, if it hasn't already been previously filed and paid for, gets submitted, but an electrical permit also gets pulled and approved by the building inspector for proper electrical connections and service, and for proper structural support for a 26-pound anchor on the bottom of this quite old mounting system. However, there are quite a few anchor points, so my guess is it can support it. But that would be my recommendation.
The only way this open sign will work is they have to flip the switch on inside the building for the main sign to go on. The main sign will go on photoelectrically, but the open sign will automatically light because it's tapped off the wire inside the main sign. And then when they shut down at night, they flip the switch off, the open sign goes off, the main sign goes off. So the electrical is all internal. There's nothing extra that needs to be ran, because it's all within the wiring that's in the sign now.
So there's got to be wiring going from the existing sign down these supports into this box to support the ballast that's going to run this neon.
Right, and it's all in that little tubing, that one little tube that connects the two together. That's
I
the grade A
couldn't
code.
tell that from this drawing, so I didn't have that insight here, so.
So what I see from her application, that we're also approving the sign on the back of the building and the two door signs.
I don't see an application in my packet.
This is last month's packet.
Oh, and that one, yeah.
I make a motion that we approve the signage on Hindley's application.
I thought we had a question about the letterboard and what's gonna happen there. Do you have insight on that?
Probably plastic letters.
Is it painted on there?
Just the folder is painted to match the building right now. Its folder is painted, so it looks like the building. So until the letters go on, you won't know it's there.
Was there a question, not 2 meetings ago, when we talked about this, about a specific type of lettering that we know what that is, or?
We did.
We did.
Yes.
She was okay with that, Patrick.
I don't know, I haven't talked to her.
I think we had a concern that the letters were just gonna be printed
Not
off of
cardboard. Yeah,
Yeah,
not cardboard.
just hung
but, you
up
know,
there and not
something.
be the professional kind of letters that you see. That was a concern.
I made a motion, wait for a second, and, you know,
Yeah.
we can always say that sign, but
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Any more discussion?
Yes, the letters that we discussed for the back, and we did several meetings ago, talk about making sure that they were the proper types of letters so that they didn't look junky or in a state of disrepair or, you know, parts of letters broken off and things like that. There are letters that are made specifically for those tracks. That's why those tracks exist. Those letters, in my opinion, are the letters that should be used in this sign. It will help improve the image of her business, and it is an investment, but it's a worthwhile investment. They're called Gemini letters, should she choose to look that up.
Aren't they plexiglass?
I'm sorry?
Aren't they plexiglass?
Yeah, they're like acrylic or plexiglass, or, I mean, they can also be, you used to have to order these big sets of them, but there's lots of places nowadays that have the capabilities of making custom ones that are even like a whole word, if it's gonna be a regular type of use, or making, you know, custom fonts and colors and things like that. So there's a lot more flexibility nowadays.
But she could come up with a picture of the letters, the way that they're gonna look. How she configures it on there is not as important as what the layout looks like and the fonts and the colors and the sizes. And I
That would
think
seem
that
to
should
be, that
be
would
part of
seem
the
to be an
sign.
appropriate course of action, yes.
Other
She
signs
was
that
gonna
don't.
have the ability to change that too, whenever she wanted to. It's not a set in stone sign.
Yeah. It'll be much easier for her to use by doing it that way too. That way it's easier to change it. She doesn't have to run to Hobby Lobby and buy another set of letters because she's missing the extra R she needs for this or that, or, you know, whatever.
That's what we're here for, to sign the books. So that way we're gonna know if it.
She got the letters, we don't know.
We'll know what she's working with.
So I'm not opposed to the use of that area as the sign, as the way it's intended and constructed, just the method of use is, I think, the concern. I mean, it's a fairly visible sign.
Proper utilization of the sign. Letter folder.
Yeah, that would, I mean, those are my comments.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor? Yes, Ben?
Could you repeat the motion?
Yeah, can you repeat the motion?
I make a motion to approve the sign application for Henny's. Don't take much for someone maybe to walk over and just talk, yell about it.
Any more comments? There, motion and second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed?
Roll call.
Roll call vote. Go off your roll call. 3.
Gonna go across.
Benedict.
For
Grimm,
Yes.
Ellis,
yes.
Janice,
Nay.
Elixir,
Nay.
Summers.
I am Patrick. I only vote in the tiebreaker.
Your vote.
I will vote yes on this too. I will. Would you care to go over there with me, Patrick, at a later date when you're feeling better and we will have this discussion with her?
I told her the last time I spoke to her, I'm happy to speak to her anytime she had any concerns or questions about her sign.
Could we visit her when you have a minute
Sure.
and we can go over this? Thank you, Patrick. Motion passed. Discussion and possible action on plan of operation and site plan for Cut and Go Tree LLC at 20275 West Good Hope Road. Ben?
Yeah, one moment, please. Okay, first off, I want to commend the applicant. They pulled together a lot of information to address the plan commission's concerns and staff comments recently, including providing site photometric that they just got at about 5:30 this evening. So thank you for bringing that and getting it in. So as plan commission knows, this has been tabled for a long time, waiting for the stormwater issues to get resolved or addressed. And I want to take a minute and just kind of rehash where this started and then the direction that the applicant has chosen to go when they've included an engineering analysis in the packet tonight. So you'll recall that two things happened that are contributing to the runoff issues being experienced across the way at units 111 and 112 in Landon Estates. One, when Diamond Drive was developed by the owner of Landon Estates at the time, they did not build the road in accordance with the approved plan. The low spot was supposed to be next to their pond, further south of the units there. And it was not. The low spot was built in front of units 111 and 112. Historically, my understanding is the village had to take them to court over not building the road properly. It was supposed to be paved with asphalt. It was only left gravel, etc. Apparently, the outcome of that effort was the owner at the time paved the road, but the low spot is still in the wrong spot. Then in 2015, the former property owner Johnson and Sons had an approved plan of operation that included showing asphalt paving on their southern lot, which is on the west side of Diamond Drive there. And we put in our comments that they would need to take care of stormwater management, which would be handled at the time they apply for a grading permit application. They went ahead and paved it without a permit. As the applicants are here tonight will represent, they were made aware of this before they purchased the property and agreed to work toward a resolution. So now there's new property owners on both sides of the aisle. Asset Development Group owns Landon Estates. They did not own it at the time that the issue with the road grading was there. And then the bosses own the property. They were not the ones who owned it when it was paved without a permit. My understanding is those two parties started to work together toward, or discussing, possibly partnering and trying to figure out how to resolve the issue. The bosses elected, and if I may, said to me at one point, if we're gonna spend a lot of money fixing it, we want to invest that money on our own property and take care of our responsibilities. So the direction they were then given was do a stormwater management plan, come up with an engineered solution in how to manage your stormwater in accordance with village ordinances. So what they did is they hired Lake Country Engineering. They did a stormwater management plan. And the results that they're showing is that with the construction of 2 ponds, stormwater management ponds, in addition to the curbing that the applicant has already done in the interim earlier this summer, that they do in fact comply with the ordinances. The ordinances state that the post-construction runoff release rate has to be less than the pre-construction condition. So their engineer looked at both the 2015 condition and their now proposed improvements on that property. And the stormwater modeling shows that for a 1-year storm and a 2-year storm, which ranges in size from about 1 inches to 3 inches of rain over the course of a 24-hour period, that the runoff leaving the property will be about half of what it was when it was under the Johnson and Sons condition, if you will. Now, the reason for that is kind of due to 3 factors. One, they installed kind of a V-shaped speed bump asphalt curve so that water doesn't just leave out of their building entrances. It directs the water to the edge of the pavement, which is currently just landscaped areas. 2, their engineer is proposing 2 stormwater management plans that are shown on the materials that are in your packet. And 3, they are actually planning to do additional improvements on the south lot, mainly add a building. It's approximately a 70-foot by 70-foot building, if I'm correct. And they're going to be removing asphalt. So when they are done with, if approved and they go forward with this, when they are done, the amount of impervious area on this will be less than the impervious area that's there right now. I will also state that their engineer modeled this with the flow coming not just from the south lot, but from their entire property. And it includes through flow from adjacent areas that drain through the property also. The ordinances beyond release rate and the requirement to reduce the runoff release rate, the ordinances require a reduction in total suspended solids removal, otherwise known as TSS, and they're exceeding 80% TSS removal on the south lot. I'm comfortable that the north lot is exempt from that. Technically, this is a redevelopment condition and they would have to achieve 40%. They're achieving 80% removal. I'm comfortable that they're meeting the water quality standards applicable to the property. So if built as planned, I believe it will achieve the stormwater management that they're responsible for on their property. Now I want to talk about expectations again, similar to the issue with light before. As a matter of practice, any property owner, it's unreasonable to require someone to retain all of the water that falls on their property, to retain that on their property, okay? It can generally flow across and through a property, et cetera. What they're responsible for managing is that the release rates of that water moving through or falling on and traveling off of their property is less than the pre-developed condition. So again, they are achieving that. So for that 1 to 3 inches of rain in 24 hours, again, that release rate will be cut about in half. When we get to a 10-year storm, which is about 4 inches, and a 100-year storm, which is about 7 inches in a 24-hour period, quite frankly, there's not going to be much of a reduction, okay? And I say that because what cannot be corrected is that the low spot in the road that the previous owner of Land Estates put in the wrong spot, that elevation, that grade cannot be changed. That is the spot from the cut and go property. That's the natural drainage path. It's the low spot. That's where the water is gonna go. So when we get a significant storm, you know, you're probably gonna notice that at the beginning of that storm, it does a good job holding stuff back, but by the middle of that storm, it wouldn't have made a difference if there's ponds there or not, because they're filled up to capacity and all the water's just spilling over. And that is permissible. So from there, you know, as I've talked to the Plan Commission about before, Asset Development Group is aware of the issue. They're aware of the potential solutions, that they can manage the water on their own property. And they've represented to me before that they are going to pursue then, when the water gets on their property, how they will manage it. They understand that it's an unreasonable expectation to say no water can, you know, be discharged from this property. It's, you know, Cut and Go is doing what they need to do to manage their stormwater on their property. Separate issue, Asset Development Group will have to do what they're responsible for to manage it on their property. That's my big stormwater spiel. As far as the rest of these things go, in a nutshell, they're proposing to add another building, a cold storage building, if you will. They have since provided a lighting plan that demonstrates that there will be 0-foot candles of light spillage across the street, etc. They've submitted a landscape plan that, in my opinion, exceeds the standards in the ordinances. The type of construction and the appearance of the building are, in my opinion, consistent with the ordinance that just says it has to blend in with the surroundings. There's already industrial buildings to the north and to the south of this building on that side of the street. So beyond that, I guess it would just be a matter of what the Plan Commission is interested in and concerned about.
So a little mini recap in your mind. Cut and Go have satisfied what they need to do as far as the stormwater. Additional runoff concerns are going to be a Land and Estates issue, not Cut and Go's.
Correct.
And the design of their building, everything meets. And just my comment, I had talked to Lisa because she is across the street, that it's not perfect, but it's a vast improvement over what we had before they bought the property. And to me, they have shown that they are doing the best they can to bring this property up to where it should be in a benefit to our village. So thank you for that.
Ben, you know, if the stormwater engineer has reviewed their landscaping,
I do not know. That was one of my comments, that the landscaper and the engineer talk, and that the engineer is comfortable with the landscape plan, because while I myself am not a landscaper or an ecologist, I just know that you gotta be careful about what gets planted around a stormwater pond, just so that if there's any liners and stuff, they don't get compromised by roots, etc. So again, if you didn't hear that, one of my comments, which would be, you know, suitable to handle through the permitting stage, would be just to make sure that their engineer is okay with the landscaping plan.
I take it you've reviewed the stormwater plan then.
Yes.
We're gonna break this down in a couple different items. So I make a motion that we recommend the village board approval of stormwater management plan for Cut and Go.
I'll second.
Can't read that fast.
Sorry,
Okay,
Mike,
we
could you
have a
repeat that?
Make a motion to approve this, make a recommendation to send to the village board the approval of. Make a motion to recommend the village board to approve the stormwater management plan for Cottonville.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Do we have any more discussion on this?
I'll just add that similar to filtration comments, Hector and I discussed, and it would be appropriate, particularly given the history, that there be a form of surety provided for the construction of the stormwater management funds.
Yeah, it's part of the next part.
Okay.
In connection with that, I note that the lady from Unit 112 is here. And I believe you've been at the previous meetings. And the owners of Cut and Go have been very cooperative despite the numerous sessions that they've had to attend. Your complex is in the process of changing hands.
Yeah, I heard that.
It behooves you to talk to your neighbors about the fact that the present owner has given a commitment, I can't find what that is, to address the problem. It could include relocating some of the lots or something more drastic. I don't know what it could include, but the burden is now on them to correct the problem and on you to lobby them to face up to it before we do have a storm that exceeds, the normal 1 and 2 year storm, because there will be water coming through.
Oh, yeah, I needed a canoe to get through my yard
Yeah.
this morning. So, but I expected that. It's nothing like it was before, because I have, day one pictures. But isn't there something we can do? And it's probably a discussion for later. Having asset development or whoever's buying them now, redo the road and put sewer in, or is that not?
That's up to them.
Okay. Because it's private property. Okay.
That it's their property. Thank you. Do you have any? Ben?
So Brenda and I have been fielding some zoning inquiries from a third-party entity that usually tries to research the zoning and the status of the property relative to the zoning requirements, and presumably that's part of a due diligence period as purchase agreement or offer to purchase pending. So I just want everyone to know that I did make that third-party entity aware of existing drainage issues specific to units 111 and 112. So I also have shared my comments, the letter for the meeting tonight is shared with Asset Development Group, and let them know that, basically my assessment is, if you follow through on this, Cut and Go's doing what they need to do to manage it on their property, so it'll be in Asset's hands to handle it on their property.
And unfortunately, probably now they don't care because they're selling. Rumor has it.
We have any more discussion? Vote on this. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Vote on just the stormwater management plan. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Part two.
Well, I think we ought to adjourn since Dan don't want to hear for another month. I make a motion to approve the plan of operation for Cut and Go with the following conditions: that they provide a final location of the fence and screening on your landscape plan, and that your stormwater engineer just review it to make sure, and that the site grading plan, there should be a engineer on site to monitor, to make sure the pond and everything is put in the right way. And that a surety bond is posted for the landscaping.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Do we have any more discussion?
As far as the new building goes, they also have to provide a lighting, the cut sheets for the lighting. Outside of them.
You just mean the fixtures? What
Yeah, fixtures.
Yep. Darn it, I missed one thing.
Just one.
I thought about it too, to be honest with you.
I know it's been a long, long period with you. I appreciate the hard work that you put in, Dan. I mean, really, you've just,
Like running 3 businesses almost.
What are you gonna do when this gets done?
We're
So-
going to another
so-
place in
Yeah, we
our
have another
hopper.
project. Personal home.
We have a motion and a second on plan of operation for cut and go with a couple of items on there. Do we have any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Discussion and possible action on sign permit application for Cut and Go LLC at 20275 West Good Hope Road. Comments, Ben?
Yeah, just let me dip there. Okay, so, this is interesting. The area of the signs is fine. They're both ground signs. Village ordinance says that 2 ground signs are allowed. I'm sorry, that 2 signs are allowed and that 1 ground sign or pole sign is allowed per premises. So what's interesting is they own adjacent contiguous property, which is where the Michael's sign is right now in the, along the side of Good Hope Road. And that sign is about the same size of the entrance sign that they're asking for here. So what's interesting is the gap sign, that foundation's still there, like the concrete block and
Yes.
poles still there.
Yes.
the gap sign. So that was the gap sign, that was the Johnson and Sons sign. The only thing that came to mind is that must have been a legal non-conforming sign that the plan commission made an exception for because the business is set so far back down a private road that it technically doesn't have any frontage to public right of way, so the plan commission must have previously allowed a sign to go there. So I don't have a problem with where they're proposing to locate the sign. I personally don't have a problem with where the gap sign is, and in my mind might even be a more logical place if you wanted it, but that's up to them, they're the applicant. But I will just add that the ordinance states that no signs can be located in the public right of way, and they've provided a map as additional material. And they're showing it set back off of the right of way, so it would be in a very similar position to that Michael's sign, I'm assuming. And so that's just kind of the background, and I'm not at all saying that there's something here that cannot be approved. I just wanted to say that it's not explicit in the ordinance, and this has always been a unique situation, having the business set so far back from any public frontage.
but gap sign, is that asset development property? Probably,
It's
yes.
either asset property or it's in public right of way, one of the two.
It's asset development property, and they had a written agreement with Johnson and Sons.
So
Okay.
he would probably be more than happy to saw that pipe off the top of that rock and get it out of there,
Asset,
cut and go.
oh,
Somebody, they could disappear. So all that's out there is a rock.
Not my property.
right, right.
Right.
But is your sign hanging on it now?
No.
Whose sign is hanging on it
They
right
put
now?
the old
The
gap
old
sign
gap
back
sign
up there.
is
We
on
even
there.
had people stop in our office
For
Yeah.
how many years ago that was, so.
Yeah, we have no interest in having anything go around a property that's not ours.
All right, there you go.
So in that, the oddity there is where the sign would be located. It's private property, it's their property, it's on developed property, but right now it's zoned residential. Now, there's nothing explicitly saying they can't do that. I just point that out to say that, you know, if anything happens on this undeveloped parcel, obviously it would be worth revisiting sign location whenever that would develop.
So I guess then a letter should be sent to asset development to remove the gap sign. Because they're not allowed to have it.
Say there was a map somewhere that shows the proposed sign locations. Find this.
Yeah, they provided some, if you want to look over my shoulder, you're welcome to.
She's like
This
this.
map. And it's the purple highlights, so they've got this, they want to keep an existing location right
Right.
here.
Yeah.
But then they're talking about.
Oh, one up there.
Right. No, I was thinking this is the map. You guys have this?
This one here.
Little 8x10 right there.
It's a little 8x10.
So ironically, the sign permit ordinance has a definition for an off-premises sign, but there's actually no like specific regulations related to an off-premises sign.
Gary. This is a little bit of history. What Ben brought up is the address is actually Good Hope Road, not Diamond Drive. So that's why the gap sign was out there to be on Good Hope Road when people were looking for where gap would be. So that's how it got there. That's also a possible reason why the sign should be on Good Hope Road again.
And these permanent signs, you've got a 5 foot off of the right of way, right? With off of the property line.
I just think that as far as location goes, let me read it here quick. No pole, well, this is under subsection to post mounted support, separate support and ground signs. Location. No pole sign shall be located within 300 feet of any residential district for off premises advertising. Interesting. No setback or offset required, but no part of any sign shall extend into the public right of way.
That's a post sign.
Yeah, but it reads weird because sub C says post mounted separate support and ground signs, and then sub 3 has location. Presumably it applies to all, but it only explicitly states that a pole sign cannot be located within 300 feet of any residential district or off premises advertising. Which my knee-jerk reaction to that, if that's the case, there's probably a lot of illegal signs.
Well, this isn't a pole sign, no. Pole sign would be like luxury autos down here where they got a single pole and a cabinet on.
Okay.
What's your thoughts on this, Patrick? You're our sign guru.
I mean, they look nice, so I mean, I think as long as they get constructed the way that they're spec'd, and there's no reason to believe they wouldn't. one question I had is what you plan to do around them. Do you plan to do any landscaping around them? Are you gonna have planting beds? You're gonna have bark? You're gonna have the grass go right up to the posts?
We don't have anything in our ordinance that requires it.
I'm just, I can still ask the
Yeah,
question.
I know, but there's no
Landscaping
requirement.
shall be required around the base of all ground or post mounted signs.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Got a whole bunch in there.
I remember hearing what you're
Yeah, because, you know,
Almost every community has a requirement for that.
I mean, just
we have a
for,
lot of places that need to be sent letters now.
Just for weed whacking purposes, we're gonna put something around it, you know, I would probably do an oval shaped with stone, so I don't get out there picking weeds too often.
So I know you've gone through a lot of effort and jumped through a lot of hoops already, so I'm not gonna belabor this point, but I think if you could at least provide some sort of drawn out plan of what you plan to do at these bases. They don't need to be done by a landscape architect and all that kind of stuff, but give us something to put on file with your sign permit application.
Sounds good.
and I have just a question on lighting. None of them will be lit. No.
No, very suitable material, suitable construction. It should look great.
Thank you, Patrick. Nice to have a sign.
I'll make a motion to approve the sign application, providing that the applicant provides a little plan of the landscaping around those at the time of application.
We have a motion and second. Do we have any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Comment I have is just that it was nice that we have businesses coming in and working with our community, willing to listen to the residents. That's very important for moving our community ahead. So, we have a motion to adjourn.
I can honestly say, we actually say welcome. Second.
We have a motion and second to adjourn. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. Again, there will be some of us around. If there's any more discussion, any questions we can handle tonight, thank you very much. Steve, again, thank you for the.
Thank you very much for your commitment and